Imagine you're sitting at this massive, incredibly elaborate banquet.
Right, like a really high-end dinner party.
Yeah, exactly. And the person hosting the dinner offers you the most prized delicacy on the entire menu.
Okay.
And they tell you, like, it holds the secret to a long, healthy life. But because of this bizarre translation error, you look at the dish and you genuinely believe they're asking you to consume human remains.
Oh my gosh!
Right. You are absolutely horrified. You push away from the table, you run out the door, and you tell everyone you know that the host has completely lost their mind.
I mean, it sounds like a scene from a horror movie, right? Or, well, maybe a really dark comedy.
Exactly.
But that scenario is actually the perfect parallel for one of the most consequential misunderstandings in human history.
It really is. Welcome to this deep dive, by the way. I'm so glad you're joining us for this one.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. Because, we often look back at ancient texts and just assume the people hearing those words in real time understood exactly what was being said.
Right. We assume they were all on the same page.
Exactly. But the reality is, many of them were just staring at the menu, completely misinterpreting the language.
Which brings us to our mission today. We are going to unpack a highly detailed theological study session that basically acts as a like a cryptographer's key for some of the oldest texts in the world.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
We're looking into how common, everyday words, things you'd literally find on your grocery list, right? Like bread, yeast, meat, blood.
The basics.
Yeah, the basics. How these words were actually operating as a complex, hidden language. A language designed to describe profound internal human transformation.
And we should probably clarify right up front that we are analyzing the architecture of this language today.
Good point.
Whether you view these ancient texts as divine revelation or historical artifacts or just intricate literature, we aren't taking a side on that.
No, not at all.
The mechanics of the metaphors are what we're really focusing on.
Yeah.
Because taking metaphorical language and forcing a literal interpretation onto it, well, it doesn't just make you miss the point.
Right.
It actively creates barriers to the very transformation the text is trying to provoke.
So we're essentially looking at an ancient cone, and the source material starts with, like, the most fundamental element of human survival. Bread.
Yeah.
Bread.
When these texts talk about bread or food, they are obviously not talking about, ancient carbohydrate intake.
Definitely not carbs. Bread, in this coded framework, it represents the word or the truth.
Okay.
But the source points out a really crucial nuance here. It's not just some vague, universal concept of truth that applies to all people at all times.
Interesting.
Yeah, the text uses the phrase, food in due season.
Food in due season. Okay, let's unpack this. Because that implies, what, an expiration date?
Right.
Are we saying that a spiritual or philosophical truth can actually go bad?
Well, it's more about developmental timing, I think.
Okay.
Think about human biology, right? The nutrition a newborn baby needs is fundamentally different from the nutrition an Olympic athlete requires.
Oh, sure. You wouldn't feed a baby a protein shake. Exactly. If you feed an adult an infant's diet, they will eventually starve.
Wow, yeah.
The source argues that spiritual truth operates the exact same way. The specific truth that nourished a civilization, say, 1,000 years ago, might not be the food required for the current era.
So you need the precise truth delivered for your specific time.
You do, yeah.
Which naturally brings us to the ingredient that actually makes bread rise and, like, change its composition, right? Leaven, or yeast.
Right, the catalyst.
So if the bread represents the truth we are consuming, the leaven represents the teachings or doctrines that activate it.
Exactly.
And the source makes a very sharp division here between two types of leaven, God's teaching and human teaching.
And that division is really the engine of the entire metaphor.
How so?
Well, human leaven represents our traditions, our societal norms, human-made doctrines. It might create a lot of visible activity, a lot of bustling around.
Sure, religious rituals, all of that.
Yeah. But the source argues it ultimately leaves you stuck in a purely human state. It breeds self-righteous factions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the text actually uses a specific term for partisanship, like the tendency to form exclusive insular cliques that just divide the world into us and them.
I mean, I struggle with that a little bit, though. Isn't that a bit of a harsh assessment?
Sounds harsh, yeah.
Because, I mean, human traditions, cultural rituals, philosophical frameworks, those things build communities. They give people comfort and identity. So why does this text view human leaven as such a dead end?
Well, what's fascinating here is that comfort and identity are exactly the problem. according to this framework.
Oh, wait, comfort is the problem.
Yeah. The text views comfort as the enemy of evolution. Human teachings give you a sense of belonging, sure, but they don't demand that you fundamentally change your nature.
I see.
You remain what the text calls a stone.
A stone?
Yeah, and a stone, no matter how beautifully you polish it or what group of stones you put it in, it cannot grow a seed. It cannot produce new life.
Wow, that makes me think of like a software update.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so human leaven is like downloading a new skin for your operating system. You change the desktop wallpaper, you group your apps into new colorful folders, and it feels like a fresh start, right?
It looks totally different on the surface.
Exactly. But the core code is entirely the same. The device hasn't gained any new capabilities at all.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. Because to accept God's leaven, the text insists you have to completely discard the old leaven.
You have to wipe the hard drive.
Basically, yeah. You have to become an entirely new batch of dough. It requires rewriting the underlying code.
Which is painful.
Very. And if you just consume the truth, the bread, but you refuse to let it rewrite your operating system, you are essentially bricking the device. You stall your own spiritual evolution.
And the source even applies this to the concept of love, which completely turns our modern understanding on its head.
It really does.
Because we generally define eternal love as, unconditional acceptance, like a warm blanket that makes us feel safe just the way we are.
Right, the human leaven of comfort.
Exactly. But in this text, divine love is characterized as a form of discipline. It's chastisement. It's a mechanism designed specifically to force you out of that comfortable stone-like state.
It demands malleability.
Yeah.
If you are seeking the human leaven of comfort, you are actively resisting the mechanism of transformation.
Wow.
True love, in this coded language, is the teaching that forces you to discard your old self, regardless of how painful or disorienting that process is.
So if that's what happens to the dough, the text then follows that process to its logical extreme. It moves to the historical event that defined unleavened bread, which is the Passover in Egypt.
Right, Exodus 12.
And this is where the imagery shifts from baking bread to something much more visceral. We start dealing with meat and blood.
Yeah, the tone really shifts here. During the historical Passover, the Israelites were instructed to eat unleavened bread, bitter herbs, and roasted lamb.
Okay.
But the physical posture they were supposed to have was just as important as the menu itself.
What do you mean?
Well, they were commanded to eat it fully dressed, staffs in their hand, shoes on their feet.
Oh, like they're ready to run.
Entirely prepared to flee Egypt at a moment's notice.
So in a literal reading, Egypt is just a kingdom on a map. But if we apply that cryptographer's lens from our source material, they aren't just running away from a geographical location.
No, Egypt represents a state of death.
A state of death.
Yeah, it is the ultimate symbol of spiritual enslavement and stagnation. Leaving Egypt means abandoning that dead state.
Right.
And the catalyst for that escape is the Lamb. The source connects this back to the Gospel of John, pointing out that Jesus is referred to as the Lamb of God.
Okay, so the lamb is the embodiment of the ultimate truth.
Exactly.
So let's break down the mechanics of the metaphor here. Eating the lamb's flesh isn't about magical meat. It's an illustration of deeply internalizing the truth.
Yes.
When you eat literal food, your digestive system breaks it down, and the nutrients literally become your cells, right? Your muscles, your blood. It stops being something outside of you and becomes you.
It is the biological equivalent of complete assimilation. The teaching ceases to be a philosophy you just study and becomes the very substance of your character.
I love that.
But internalization is only the first half of the Passover requirement.
Right, there's more.
The second half is taking the lamb's blood and painting it on the doorposts of the house so the judgment will pass over them.
I found the anatomical mapping of this incredibly clever.
Isn't it?
Yeah, the text argues that in this symbolic architecture, the house is the human body, which means the doorpost of the house is the mass.
Entrance and the exit point.
Wow!
Yeah. If you have genuinely eaten the meat, if you have fully assimilated the truth into your being, the evidence of that transformation must appear on the doorpost.
The blood.
Yes. The blood represents the vocal expression of that truth. It must be spoken. It has to cross the threshold of your mouth out into the world.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because we essentially have a two-part authentication system now.
Right.
Eating the meat is learning. Painting the blood is teaching or speaking.
Exactly.
So what happens if someone acquires all this knowledge? They sit alone in a room reading the texts. They claim to have internalized the truth, but they never paint the doorpost. They just keep it to themselves.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture the source is painting, the verdict is quite severe.
Yeah.
The text states that if the words do not come out of your mouth, God considers you to possess absolutely no knowledge at all.
Whoa.
None at all. The entire process is voided. Internalization without external expression is treated as an illusion.
So you can't just download the software and leave it sitting on your hard drive.
No, you can't.
You have to execute the program and share the output, or the download was completely pointless.
And this is exactly where the source draws a really sharp line between this profound metaphorical mechanism and the way we practice literal rituals today.
Like what?
Well, think about traditions where people offer physical bowls of rice or literal bread to deceased ancestors, or they take literal wine in religious ceremony expecting some kind of magical result.
People are just going through the physical motions, entirely missing the cold.
The irony is striking, really. The ancestors didn't literally starve for physical carbohydrates.
Right.
According to this framework, they were starving for the food in due season. That specific spiritual truth meant for their era. So when modern people offer physical bread, they are acting out a metaphor they no longer understand.
And the structure of how that truth is supposed to be distributed is also coded into the text, isn't it?
Yes, very specifically.
The source spends time highlighting the recurring use of the number 12. 12 breads, 12 baskets left over, 12 disciples, 12 rivers, 12 trees of life.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. And the text makes a slightly humorous point that you don't see prophecies about 12 dogs or 12 crocodiles.
Right, it's not random.
The number is locked to very specific elements.
Right, 12 functions as the blueprint for divine organization.
Yeah.
It's not just a historical head count. When the narrative says there were 12 baskets of bread left over, it isn't giving us the inventory from a catering company.
Right.
It is communicating that the bread, the truth, is distributed and managed through an organized structural framework which is represented by the 12 disciples. The numbers are load-bearing pillars in the architecture of the metaphor.
So if the architecture is this beautiful, if eating flesh and drinking blood is actually this incredibly rich, multi-layered metaphor for learning, internalizing, organizing, and sharing transformative truth,
Yeah.
why did it go so spectacularly wrong? Because historically in the narrative, Jesus deploying this metaphor caused a massive catastrophe.
Oh, an absolute disaster. It alienated almost everyone who heard it.
Yeah.
And it happened because the audience was hopelessly trapped in literalism. The source material breaks down John chapter 6 to demonstrate this collision between metaphorical truth and literal expectation.
Let's set the scene for that, actually. Jesus has just performed what might be his most famous public miracle. He feeds 5,000 people by multiplying literal, physical bread and fish.
Right.
The crowd is ecstatic. I mean, they are living under Roman occupation, they're dealing with poverty, and they've just found a guy who can conjure free meals on demand.
Who wouldn't follow him?
Exactly. So they follow him to the other side of the lake, basically looking for breakfast.
They are looking for a material king to solve their material problems.
Right.
But Jesus immediately pivots. He tells them that the literal manna their ancestors ate in the wilderness didn't grant them immortality. I mean, they all eventually died.
Sure.
He claims that he is the true bread from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And then, standing in front of thousands of people who were just expecting a bakery, he drops a bombshell.
Yeah.
He tells them, eat my flesh and drink my blood.
And the crowd's reaction is just visceral. They are utterly repulsed. And the source material actually draws a brilliant cultural parallel here to highlight just how grotesque this sounded to them.
Oh.
It references the famous Chinese epic Journey to the West, specifically the character Tang Sanzang.
Yeah, Tang Sanzang is a holy monk. And throughout the story, various demons and monsters are constantly trying to capture and eat him.
Right.
They believe that because he has achieved such a high level of spiritual purity, consuming his literal physical flesh will grant them immortality.
It's a literal injection of holiness.
Exactly.
And the crowd in John 6 is basically thinking Jesus is offering them Tang Sanzang monk meat.
Yes.
They are looking at him thinking, wait, are you asking us to become cannibals? Are we supposed to carve you up right here?
It's horrifying.
And you have to factor in the cultural context, too. This is an ancient Jewish audience bound by incredibly strict dietary laws. They won't even eat a fish if it doesn't have scales.
Right.
The idea of drinking any blood, let alone human blood, is the ultimate defilement.
It sounded like absolute madness to them. The juxtaposition of their strict literal laws against this profound spiritual metaphor, it just created total dissonance. They couldn't compute it.
And the narrative says the crowd just leaves. Thousands of people, and even many of his own disciples, abandon him right on the spot.
They just walk away.
They walk away entirely disgusted. Only the core 12 stick around. And Jesus asks them if they want to leave too, and Peter's response is so raw.
Yeah.
He basically says, look, we don't understand what you're talking about either, but you have the words of eternal life, so where else are we going to go?
See, Peter represents the willingness to sit in the discomfort of not knowing.
Wow.
He doesn't understand the metaphor, but he recognizes the value of the teacher enough to wait for the decoding.
Right.
Jesus does eventually explain it, stating explicitly, "The flesh counts for nothing. The word I have spoken to you are spirit and life."
So the physical meat is useless.
Useless, it's the words. But by the time he clarifies that, the literal thinkers are long gone.
So what does this all mean? Jesus knew his audience, right? He knew their dietary laws, he knew their sensibilities, and he fully knew that using a graphic metaphor about cannibalism and vampirism would instantly gross them out and make them leave.
He had to have known.
So why intentionally alienate thousands of people? Why not just say, hey, everyone, please deeply internalize my teachings and share them?
Well, this raises a really important question about the methodology of these ancient texts. The source suggests this extreme, borderline offensive metaphor wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate and highly calculated filter.
A filter to weed people out. That seems kind of counterintuitive to building a movement, doesn't it?
If your goal is just numerical popularity, yes.
Yeah.
But consider the crowd's motivation. They were there entirely because their physical stomachs had been filled the day before.
Right.
They wanted a vending machine, not a transformation. By deploying a metaphor that sounded absurd on its literal surface, Jesus instantly separated the consumers from the students.
Wow. So if you were only there for the free lunch, the second he starts talking about eating his flesh, your literal mind is offended and you bounce.
Exactly.
But if you were actually searching for truth, you might be incredibly confused, like Peter, but you suspect there has to be a deeper layer. You endure the confusion to find the meaning.
The literal absurdity was the test. It proves the absolute necessity of looking past the surface of any teaching.
That is so profound.
If your engagement with knowledge never goes beyond the literal surface-level reading, you will inevitably misunderstand the core message. You will end up walking away from the exact thing that could rewrite your operating system, simply because you didn't like the packaging.
That drastically changes how we should read these stories. We aren't just reading ancient historical accounts of weird meals. We are looking at a roadmap for how human beings acquire and process truth.
A complete roadmap.
Let's synthesize what we've actually uncovered today. We started with what looked like a bizarre agricultural and dietary text.
And by utilizing the cryptographer's lens from the source material, those mundane items revealed an incredibly sophisticated life cycle of knowledge.
Yeah.
You have the intake of specific timely truth, the food in due season.
Right.
You have the catalyst that rewrites your internal code, the godly leaven. You have the deep cellular assimilation of that knowledge eating the lamb's flesh.
And finally, you have the required vocal expression and sharing of that transformed state, painting the blood on the doorpost of your mouth.
Exactly. And surrounding all of it is the cautionary tale of the crowd, a historical catastrophe caused by missing the metaphor.
Yeah, thousands of people abandoning profound spiritual evolution because their literal minds couldn't process the imagery.
It serves as a stark warning. Clinging to literalism, whether in ancient texts, modern philosophies, or human traditions, is the greatest barrier to genuine understanding. It turns you into a stone.
So we want to turn this over to you listening right now. When you encounter something new, whether you are studying an ancient philosophy, trying to understand a complex new corporate strategy, or even navigating a difficult conversation, how often do you get trapped on the literal surface?
It's a great question.
When the terminology gets confusing or the ideas challenge your comfort zone, do you walk away offended like the crowd in John 6? Or do you sit in the discomfort like Peter, trusting that if you push past the confusing surface, there is a deeper meaning waiting to be decoded?
Because the goal of acquiring knowledge isn't to merely decorate your life. It isn't about downloading a new wallpaper to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
True learning requires the willingness to discard the old leaven and become entirely new.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to ponder long after this deep dive ends. Take a hard look at the daily habits, the cultural traditions, and even the workplace rituals you participate in every single day.
Yeah, examine those closely.
Are you just going through the physical motions? Are you just showing up, eating the literal bread, and checking the boxes to stay comfortable? Or have you actually found the leaven hidden within those actions, the challenging, disruptive truth that is constantly forcing you to transform?
Such an important distinction.
Because if you are just staring at the blueprint and seeing a pile of stones, you might be missing the very machine that was designed to change your life.